I've had a chance to, since Dallas, frankly, have a few conversations with the officers. Some are certainly concerned, as they should be. There is a heightened state of awareness, as it should be. And so we want to make sure our officers are safe. But here's the bright spot here in the city of Detroit. We have a community here that vastly supports this police department, that has showed tremendous love since Dallas. I know on Friday the veterans went out and fed our officers throughout the city. Other members from the community have shared their support for this department. Someone sent just a whole bouquet of yellow roses as a show of support that we sent out to the officers. So again, I applaud the Detroit community for their unrelenting support for our police officers. And when you hear me say that it's so important, particularly now, that we show support, because as the chief in Dallas said during his early remarks, he made the statement, he said, we don't always feel supported. I just hope today that we feel supported. And the good news for us here in Detroit, our officers do feel supported, but that doesn't mean that this doesn't personally affect them. And so our heart and prayers certainly go out for our officers here. They continue to do the kind of job that they do. They're committed, you know, and when there is a protest, as you have seen, it's been this police department that has built relationships and have been without incident. I will tell you that I'm certainly encouraged. You may have remembered that just several weeks ago I met with Reverend Williams of National Action Network. We had great dialogue in the past. We have not always agreed, but certainly the fact that we are talking, there is some common ground. He has agreed that in light of what just happened today, he wants to initiate and organize a rally in support of our police officers, and I'm excited that he's doing that, and we're going to join him in that effort. So with that, I'll open it up for any questions.
Chief, why do you believe that people are targeting law enforcement now?
Well, you know, I believe that this anti-police rhetoric that's permeating our nation, it's certainly empowering. I've said this well over a year ago, that those who threaten the lives of officers and nothing's done, this anti-police rhetoric and certainly a perception that no one's addressing it certainly fuels individuals who want to engage in this kind of criminality, violent attacks on police officers. You know, I've taken a very firm stand. We arrested 4 individuals who made very specific threats against members of the police department, the Detroit Police Department. We're still waiting for the Wayne County prosecutor to make a decision on those charges. I'm committed to it, and clearly we're going to continue to fight the fight. And if anyone makes a threat, specific threat against the police department, I have taken a stand that will be a zero tolerance. We will find you, we will arrest you, and we'll present the arrest to the prosecutor for charging consideration.
Chief, after Dallas and after today, what are you telling your officers when out on patrol?
Just to be vigilant. You know, certainly officer safety is paramount, and certainly reminding them that we have a community here that supports. You know, underreaction can be just as bad as overreaction. So we want to make sure that our officers are safe and continue to know that the vast majority of the people who live, work, and play in the city of Detroit support policing. And that's reflective across this country. But make no mistake, there are a minority of individuals who want to do harm to the police. That's very evident when you look at Dallas and now Louisiana.
You talked about your officers have expressed some concerns. Can you elaborate, one, on how many and what exactly their specific concerns are?
Well, I haven't taken a survey. Certainly I had a chance to visit earlier today the 5th and 9th precinct. Certainly I attended the roll call at the 5th precinct. It was somber. Again, when a tragedy like this hits law enforcement, it touches them. Certainly my team that stands with me today as well as touching me personally, it's touched each of them. But that doesn't mean we cannot do our job professionally and constitutionally. We will continue to do that. And that's the one thing I applaud about this department. That's what separates us from so many across this country.
Although there is a strong community support, have you looking into different protocol? We're hearing some cities eliminating single patrols after today. Have you looked into things like that?
Well, as a rule, the Detroit Police Department, as a rule, we don't have single patrols. Certainly, our traffic officers ride by themselves. I tend to ride by myself. I know I responded to a call in the 5th Precinct in response to Dallas because the officer had needed what we call moral support on a call. So I went by to check on the officers. It was 6 officers at the scene. And they were glad that I stopped by, but also certainly it was obvious that they were supporting each other, especially in this very turbulent time. But again, I just want to say that what you see and hear in other places is not necessarily reflective here in Detroit. Now, that doesn't mean that there are individuals that want to do harm, and that's why when threats began to emanate from social media, we responded very quickly. We made the arrest, and again, we are waiting on a decision by the prosecutor's office.
And you haven't had any additional threats since that?
We have not. I think certainly any suspect who thought and felt free to make a threat against the Detroit Police Department, they know that we're going to do everything we can to identify you and have a conversation with you and arrest you and go from there.
Any details on when this rally with NAM will take place?
No date has been set. As I was driving over here, a member of my staff, Todd Bettison, who works in our neighborhood policing, advised me of Reverend Williams' intent to do that. I let him know I was excited, certainly supportive, and so as soon as we have more information, we'll certainly get that out to you.
Chief, you talked about anti-police rhetoric, but if you meant threats, you would have said threats. So what's the difference between criticism, your rhetoric that you think goes too far, and actual threats?
Well, when you talk about threatening to kill a police officer, certainly it's no secret that a year or so ago, some of the protesters were chanting basically death to police officers, pigs in a blanket. That negative rhetoric certainly fuels the anger of some. Now, again, I'm not going to paint an entire organization with a broad brush. You've heard me say I push back vigorously when people try to paint a brush on this department or any law enforcement agency because of the act of one officer, and then this premature jump to conclusion without the facts being known. That's problematic today. And so as a country, we need to sit down. Obviously, there are issues that need to be resolved. There needs to be strong leadership. There needs to be strong leadership at the very top, denouncing, and that's happening. I know the president has made a very firm stand on any violent acts against police officers are unacceptable and should be addressed. And following that suit, I am hopeful that anytime you make a threat to the life of a police officer, that there will be a certain response, a unified certain response.
Chief, are you looking to see a Blue Lives Matter law in Michigan?
I'm not familiar with a Blue Lives Matter. I think that support for our law enforcement is important. And again, I don't want my remarks to be taken out of context. Certainly when an officer makes a mistake, and if the mistake is determined to be criminal, then we take appropriate and prompt action to that. But certainly our first responders are the ones that go to the danger, not run from it. And so there needs to be wholesale support for law enforcement because the vast majority, and I've worked in a number of cities, so I have a pretty good place of understanding the commitment made by law enforcement.